It's that uprising.
Hello, this is the Uprising podcast. I have Landry. He was going to run for city council. I just wanted to get him on the platform just to discuss the issues that's concerning him and why he wanted to run for city council. Explain a little bit about himself and a bit of his platform and issues that's kind of plaguing the area of Tulsa for make him want to run for that office. About him wanting more younger people to get involved as well. So welcome to the podcast, man. Glad you're on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Course. So can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? What area of Tulsa that you're going to aspire to run one day? And just tell a little bit about that area, and we get into a little bit more after that.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. So my name is Landry Miller. I live in District 4 of Tulsa, which is, if you're familiar at all with Tulsa, it's basically everything east of Gilcrease Road, south of 244, west of Yale, and north of 31st. It's that little chunk right there. And I've lived in this district for a few years now, just hopping from place to place around the district. But one reason I love it is because it also contains some of the best parts of Tulsa. We have downtown, which is both the oldest and the newest developed part of Tulsa. I mean, literally a 100-year-old restaurant is downtown, still operating, and we're putting up new condos right now. I mean, that's one of the most interesting parts of the city. We also have like Utica Square, Cherry Street, Route 66 literally goes right through the heart of this district. I mean, the list goes on, and it's arguably one of the most diverse parts of Tulsa, both economically, background, racially. I mean, this district has it all, and I love living in it. There's a reason why I chose to live in it, and those are the exact reasons why. So that's where I live. I feel like I forgot the last part of that question that you asked me there, so I apologize.
Yeah, just a little bit about yourself. Why did you want to run for office, for city council? I mean, and what do you think are some of the issues that you'll be able to solve if you do get elected one day?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with a little bit about me. I am a 26-year-old man. I live in Tulsa. I'm a fifth generation Oklahoman. I grew up, so my dad's side of the family is all full-blood Cherokee. So I have, it doesn't look like it, but I have quite a bit of Cherokee blood in me. So growing up on those values, growing up learning about our heritage and our history, and of course, the removal and the Trail of Tears, that kind of stuff really stuck with me throughout the years. I went into a lot of, Cherokee Law Institute. I was involved in Cherokee language speaking courses, and I'm a conversationalist Cherokee speaker. But I bring along this history and this knowledge that has pushed me into wanting to fight to make sure that voices are heard, that no more injustices can happen to the vulnerable people in our communities. There's so many, and living in Tulsa, I mean, right here on our streets was one of the most heinous acts of racial injustice and white nationalism in the history of our country. I mean, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, which is just now being talked about nationally. I mean, this was something that was almost hidden from our history books. This is not something anyone really talked about until recently. And so things like this, they really inspire me to want to fight to make sure that these voices don't get lost in all the noise. But also that being under 30, that's a whole chunk of Tulsa that is completely unrepresented. The reason why I decided to run for city council was because it feels like they were treating under 30 as like kids at the kids table at Thanksgiving. And I believe that right now it's time to let us pull a chair up to the adult table and join the conversation.
Mhm.
The lifeblood of Tulsa, the people that are working in the bars and the restaurants and all of the places people love to go downtown, that's all people under 30.
Yeah.
They make up the majority of that workforce. And the fact that they're not being considered in these conversations about what we're doing with our city and the direction that we're going as Tulsans is, in my book, insane.
Yeah, it is. It is truly insane. A little older than you. I'm 29, but we're both technically millennials.
Yeah,
And millennials are starting to run for office because we don't like how our government is right now,
yeah,
locally and federally. A lot of us, not everyone. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but we just want change, and that's how we get change. Is people run for office, you support those people, and like you're saying, especially in this city and a lot of other cities across the country, the young people voices are not being heard,
yeah.
and I'm glad for people like you or anyone else that are kind of in our age bracket are running for office because you're allowed to and you should. And
Yeah.
um, I think our generation, because we just grew up in a different environment from our parents, just don't want the future that they have necessarily. Um, so you're a younger person. Does that do you think you running for office will inspire other people running for office as well?
I like to think that it does. I like to think that based on the amount of feedback that I received and the what we like to call historically the shortest campaign in the history of Tulsa, is that there were a lot of young people that reached out from all over the city. That I think one thing we were fighting for is government accessibility. It's
Mhm.
something that I believe the more transparent and the more available that city government is and local government is, the better. I mean, any local leader, any politician that doesn't want the people to be involved in local government probably should be watched a lot more carefully.
Yeah.
Uh, I totally believe that it needs to be accessible to as many people as possible. And a lot of people my age, a little bit older, a little bit younger, didn't even realize that running for a city council position was even something available to us. I think there's a huge mental gap between the people and local government in that way. Um, because I think a lot of us, and I mean, our national government is a prime example of this, that a lot of us believe that to be involved in politics, you have to have access to money and lots of it. These politicians, they're people that they were just kind of born into it. That's kind of what it seems like because all of our politicians have been in those positions for decades now. Um, how are we supposed to know that we can run for public office? How are we supposed to know that we can actually make change in that way?
Mhm.
And so that's one thing that a lot of people, it opened up their eyes to even knowing that this was an option.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people that were kind of, I don't want to give myself too much credit, but I know a lot of people that were like really starting to consider whether or not public office was something they should consider.
Yeah. That's great. Like you were saying, underrepresented in this city, especially.
Yes.
Kind of feel like we kind of live in two different cities at sometimes. The downtown's a lot different from other sides of the city. I grew up in East Tulsa. I went to East
Oh, okay.
Central. So I've been a Tulsa my whole life as well.
Yeah.
So I currently live in Broken Arrow though. But
Oh, well, then we won't hold that against you.
so it's a little different here, but it's essentially still Tulsa in my
Yeah.
eyes. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm grateful that you even have the courage to even do that because the run for office, because a lot of people just don't believe in themselves enough or don't think that they can cause change, and that's just not true. And if you feel like you can make a difference and you have a voice and you have ideas and a platform to make a difference, then you should run. And like you were saying, you don't need a whole bunch of money, especially in local races. Now,
Right.
like huge like governor or senate, that's a different discussion. But like local races, like you just need to be able to get out and talk to people, and if they have the values that you have, then you can have a coalition.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I definitely agree. One of the biggest things, like regarding this one, and I'll throw in the M. Night Shyamalan twist about the campaign here in just a second as well,
Oh, okay.
is that going into it, we also we're saying, if we're representing this group of under 30, well, what we need to focus on is educating, energizing, and engaging with the young people of Tulsa. I mean, this is who we want to be a voice for. So we decided we were going to try and run the campaign a little differently. We were going to do a lot of online stuff. We were going to hold virtual town halls, also with, the whole pandemic. I don't know if that's a thing everyone knows about.
Yeah, I hope so.
We were going to hold virtual town halls, which we held 2 of them and had a great response. And it ended up leading to a lot of amazing conversations we never would have had just going out door to door. We also, obviously we had plans to go door to door. We had a lot of strategy going into that. But to the larger point is that I'll get on with where things took a turn.
Okay.
So now really what we're talking about is government transparency, accessibility, of course. People under 30 need to be represented, but also more than ever, you have to, we learned this the hard way, you have to know where you are when it comes to your voter registration. This is something that is way more important than we could have ever thought it was. We ran into a bit of a snafu regarding that and had to end the campaign in 5 days because, there was a story run on it yesterday on the local news that kind of didn't exactly get all the details right. But so I'll clarify here.
No news for you.
I am, yeah. So I'm registered to vote at my current address. That seems to be some confusion. I am registered to vote at my current address. Here's where the issue lies. I have not been registered to vote at this current address for long enough to qualify to run.
What's the qualifications usually?
Well, see, that's where the discussion gets tricky. So depending on whether you're looking at just Tulsa electoral laws or whether you're looking at Oklahoma's municipality election laws, it varies. So this is one thing I really wanted to talk about is when it comes to government accessibility, we also need to make sure that it's clear to people how they can be a part of change. Because if these rules had been written clear, we may not have ever had this problem. We could have continued fighting for change and not running for office.
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, like a lot of people just keep on running and keep on running and getting reelected and reelected. They put these roadblocks for people and makes things way more complicated than they really need to be to defer people from running. And it's just a power thing. It's just people don't want to change. They're like politicians. I mean, people don't want to change, and they don't like people running against them because if they don't have a good record on things, then they could get replaced. And so they put a lot of roadblocks.
Of course, yeah, and that was kind of one of the big things is so in one passage it says that you just have to be registered to vote and you have to live in District 4, and then the next paragraph said you have to be qualified to be a city councilor. So those are the qualifications. You have to be qualified to be a city councilor within 30 days of being elected. Okay, so that's one statement. Then in a different document, it says you have to be registered to vote at your address for at least 90 days before filing. While on another document, it says you have to be 6 months registered there before filing. So the timeline's all over the place. It wasn't worth the legal battle to try and figure all of that out about where we actually stand regarding it. Because you're exactly right. These laws are written to keep a majority of people out of making decisions. these kinds of laws and ordinances, they date back, 10, 20 years. And depending on the history of your city, you pretty much know exactly why they wrote those. So yeah, I mean, and the thing was, this felt like the right moment. I wasn't sure if it was at first. This is something I've always toyed with. I've always known that I was drawn to some kind of public service. So my other job, when I'm not doing stuff like this, is I'm a writer and I'm an entertainer. I do stand up as well. So I'm always out there with people, meeting people, talking to people. And I always knew that this was something I had a passion about. But like I said earlier, I didn't know it was even accessible to someone like me. How could someone like me get involved in politics? How could anyone that I know be involved in politics, trying to make change for people and talk about things they care about and be taken seriously about it? We're in our 20s. Why should anyone listen to us?
Yeah.
These were the questions I had going into this. But after watching the last few months and the last couple of years and seeing that it felt like an uphill battle with local leadership. It felt like there was no strong direction for where they wanted to go. And stepping up and trying to fill that space, because right now I believe we're in a crucial moment in the history of our country, especially nationally. I mean, 2020, this is one of the most important elections. 2016 was really the important one, but 2020 is one of the most important elections in the history of our country. And that trickles all the way down to local politics. I mean, if you don't have a solid foundation, the thing is, we don't have time to figure out if Trump's going to be reelected or if Biden or if, Joe Jorgensen's going to be elected. We don't have time to figure all this out. We have to focus on the future of Tulsa right now. I mean, we're coming off the tail end of a pandemic. We're on the recovering end of it. And we're seeing spiking again of cases because we've, in my opinion, not had a great rollout plan on reopening. The economic, the economic potential, we don't, it's looming over us that there's going to be some kind of downfall with the economy. There's all kinds of things. I mean, we're coming up again on the 100-year anniversary of one of the most awful things that ever happened in the city, and all eyes of this country are going to be on us, especially with as much tension as there is regarding race and law enforcement right now. I mean, Tulsa could be a shining light to the entire country. But we have to have strong leadership, and we have to have people that are willing to step up and say something. And that's what led me to run. Crucial moments calls for crucial decision making. And I'm not seeing that right now. And I want to see that. There's a lot of great people that are currently running for city council and for mayor as well. And we probably don't need to get into that today. But there's a lot of amazing people. And if you're in one of the districts or you're looking into who's running in Tulsa, maybe you live in Tulsa, definitely check that out, because there's some very interesting and very intelligent people that are running. So anyway, sorry, I really got us off on a tangent.
Oh, there. No, that's, you're the voice. I'm just listening and asking questions. So yeah, the mayor, there's different voices running for mayor. I haven't been able to look fully into them, so I'm not going to comment on that. But hey, that's great. A strong opposition party to anything is great in my eyes. So do you want to kind of expand on what do city council people even do? And sorry, just 1 second. And so you brought up the Tulsa massacre a few times. Did you go to Tulsa Public Schools, I'm assuming?
Actually, I went to Claremore Schools because my father was a teacher out there. So I had to. Oh. Yeah, I had to.
Okay, so a little different, but so I went to East Central, and now it's been a little bit, so memory's a little foggy, but I didn't really learn that much about it. And I went to the BLM March a couple of weeks ago, and this lady was talking about like how Native Americans and the Black community and some other people that were for change a few years, like a long time ago, did a march, and I didn't even know about that. And like you're talking about the Native American community, I noticed now with my high school, maybe yours is a little different, we kind of just touched on things. We didn't really go into depth. And I think that's a big issue in our country's history is we have like my buddy just said we have the elementary version of history, and we don't we don't go over everything, uh, and I think we need to. And like you're saying, next year is going to be a big year for this city, and uh, if our mayor gets replaced or he's still mayor, whoever is leading the city is going to have to step up and try to unify our city more, because we are very divided. And the events with Mr. Floyd's murder and everything else has really divided us country in certain things, but has united our country in certain things as well. So like you're saying, we do definitely need stronger leadership. And even if Biden does get reelected, I hope he does step up. He is listening, and I think he definitely needs to do more to that. And our other local people need to do better as well. So, do you, again, I kind of went like you just did, kind of get a little long-winded, but so do you want to go over what do city council people do?
Yeah, definitely. So city council is a very interesting job. So one of the reasons I wanted to run for that job over anything else is because city council are the people that's your first line of conversation as a citizen. The first person you talk to is a city councilor. I mean, that's their job. The job is to go out and to talk to people and figure out where they stand on things. And so whenever, you know, city ordinances are being written up, whenever problems are being addressed, that's the person you talk to. Actually, the best way, I think, to describe what a city councilor does without getting too deep into, you know, into it, yeah, is that when a city like ours, so a lot of cities, it's like a strong mayor council decision making. Some is like more of a emphasis on mayor, less on city council. But the way ours runs is that if you think of the city as a car, the mayor is the one behind the steering wheel. He's the one driving the car. The citizens and the tax money, that's the fuel to get us there. But city council is kind of the one, they're kind of the GPS. They're kind of being like, we're actually going to take a turn here. We're going to start to move this direction. They make decisions as a whole based on, Tulsa approval, based on the citizens' approval. And they kind of make decisions on where we're headed. Of course, the mayor, he has all the final say, but the council is kind of that voice for the people to say, this is what they want, this is what we want, and this is how we want to get it done. So a lot of like community projects are led by city council, stuff like revitalizing a certain part of town. They'll write up, okay, so this is something that I don't think a lot of people know about city council, is that at least in Tulsa, city councilors, each one has $1 million a year to put into community efforts. They get to choose kind of what they do with that. Some people, they put it into more infrastructure. Some put it into more parks and recreational stuff. Some put it into different nonprofit movements like mental health and stuff like that. But yeah, so if they're trying to revitalize a certain part of town, like I know a couple of years ago, the Pearl District, we were trying to get that going again, and it was led by city councilors, I guess, because it was multiple people, and they kind of led that charge, and they wrote up different plans and ordinances, and then they voted on them. When you talk about it, it sounds like a much more boring job than it, because it's actually a very exciting job.
Yeah, it's a very important job, even if it could be boring.
It's a very important job. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So just like they handle the budget, they handle projects as well.
Yes, budget is the huge part of that. They vote on the budget every year. That's also a kind of a touchy subject at the moment, because our 2021 budget came out, and we. This is another problem I have with government transparency. This is something we were talking about on the campaign a lot. Was that this budget came out, and to Tulsa's credit, they did try to give us access to the budget plan, like the proposed budget. But one of the main issues with government accessibility is that just because you put out a spreadsheet with 1,000 different numbers on it does not mean that the normal citizen knows what they're looking at. I think there needs to be some kind of work involved in meeting people with information. Because you can't hide behind numbers and say that we're making progress, because I don't know how to crunch those numbers. The average Joe out here on the street, they don't know how to crunch the numbers that you're just throwing at us to know whether or not you're doing your job. And there's a lot of stuff in this city budget for 2021 that is interesting. There's a part added in for, sorry, off the top of my head, I forget the number, but there is a part added in just for parking ticket revenue. That they plan on increasing the amount of tickets they give out. Like they're planning on it in the budget already. We're not even to 2021 yet, and it's already being planned in our budget. And the police force is the second largest piece of the budget for Tulsa. And so the council voted on it. They sent it through. I'm pretty sure it was a unanimous vote, which is also something. I think it's very strange that a city council has 9-0 votes for everything. This is why we need new voices in there that are willing to vote with the people and not just with the other politicians. And I know that's like firing shots at the city council, but if we're not saying something, they're just going to keep doing it. So yeah.
And that's one of the problems with politicians. Usually they kind of just go with the flow. And a lot of pushback they don't really like from inside their party or their colleagues, because that happens a lot. They're one politician doesn't like stepping over someone else, so and that inhibits change a lot. So like you're saying, new voices is really important.
Oh, definitely. You know, I feel like I would rather have a city councilor that is unpopular but gets stuff done for the people. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a way better option to have. By the way, $122.5 million was the police budget going into 2021. I wanted to put that number out there because I didn't a second ago when I was mentioning it. 122.5 million.
And comparable to our schools and everything, it's probably not as equal as it should be.
Not so much.
And if you're not aware of Tulsa, our roads are pretty bad too. I don't understand where all this money goes, and that's the problem. That's this problem is transparency of local government and federal government. Like where all the taxes are going. Like, and a lot of them don't want to tell you because we're not going to like where that money's going.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you know, and there's a lot of things we could be doing with this money that is smarter. I feel like we don't make the money work for us. We just kind of go, hey, we want this. How much is it going to cost? And then we just kind of throw money at it and hope for the best. And usually that's not how it turns out. I mean, like you just mentioned, education. Education is a huge problem in Oklahoma, especially here in Tulsa. I mean, when you look at like lower income school districts, those kids, the amount of money they're spending per student is significantly less than other school districts. I mean, there's got to be a way to allocate tax money to make sure that every kid is getting an equal education. I mean, getting a good education in Oklahoma, it shouldn't come down to winning the lottery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's disgusting. Something's got to be done, and it's another issue that politicians stand up and say, I will fix that, I'll do something on it, I'll bridge the education gap, and then 10 more years go by and nothing gets done, and we don't hear about the problem anymore.
Yeah, but it's because people, one, they make stuff really complicated. Just like the stock market, they make stuff super complicated for most people don't understand it. They make stuff complicated because they don't want to be bothered, essentially. Like they just want us to vote for them and go away, essentially. And I think our generation and the Zoomers are fed up with that, and they want to change things, and they're tired of,
thank God,
the government working for just a few people and not working for everyone else. So And that's one of the big missions from this podcast for me is the working class, like the uprising of the working class to change this country for better. And it includes everyone, not just a few that are fortunate in situations.
Definitely. Yeah. That was a conversation I got to have a lot during the campaign, was that I was talking to a lot of people that were concerned, especially right now, financially, it's a disaster. It's a mess. Everything's shut down for 2 months, and we're given, some of us were given $1,200 to make it through. I guess we're 3 months now. This is not livable. Literally the government's job, and I know we're talking on a bigger picture here, federally speaking. I mean, if the country gets shut down, you'd think that they would want to take care of their people better. $1,200 one time, it didn't do it. It didn't do it. And so many people that I talked to were so hurt right now because they've maxed multiple credit cards just paying bills and buying food the last couple of weeks. I mean, that's insane to me. And I'm in the same boat. I don't, listen, I'm not running for like an office because I have money. I wish I was that lucky. Yeah. I still don't have any money going in or out of it. That's not how politics works. None of that money was going into my pocket.
Yeah.
So it was nice being of a background that understood where Tulsans were coming from. I mean, we still don't know. I talked to a woman a couple days ago who had a nice job downtown as an accountant, and she worked from home up until 3 weeks ago, and then they furloughed her, and now she doesn't know when she's going to work again. And this was just in the last 3 weeks that they furloughed. I mean, we have no idea what's going on. We don't know how much longer this is going to last, and people are concerned, and we don't have a voice in Tulsa who's stepping in saying, we will figure it out. We will do whatever it takes to figure it out. Yeah. There's no clear direction.
Yeah, and is this, the financial issues, one of the big things you're hearing when you're campaigning?
Honestly, I think that was the top 3 things. Yeah.
What was the other 2?
The other 2 was roads, like you said.
Yeah.
People are really upset with roads. Just in District 4, there's construction going on, I think, on like 11th, 21st, 15th, and those are all high traffic areas. Yeah. And that's just 3 random streets. And that's just in one district. I mean, it's all over the place. Roads are shut down, and I'm being told they're being worked on. It's hard to see that progress. Construction, finances, and then also just feeling like local government was out of touch with the people. I mean, that was honestly one of the biggest complaints, and I didn't know that was so much a problem. I thought going into this, I was saying, hey, we just want our government to be more transparent. We want them to have more integrity regarding decision making. We want to know who's making the decision, why they're making the decision. That's all we want to know. I thought that was more of just like a thing I was passionate about. I didn't realize that so many people felt like that was a legitimate issue. And so before we ever launched the campaign, we went out talking to random Tulsans and just talking to people. We did a couple forums online on Zoom and talked to people. And we found out that was a huge issue and concern for Tulsans. And I had no idea that it was such a big one for people.
Yeah. So how do you feel about Tesla possibly coming here, or how do you feel about them, or how do you feel about, even if they don't come here, or how do you feel about like subsidies for renewable energy companies? Would you support something like that if you would ever get elected?
I could definitely see myself supporting something like that. I mean, I think it depends a lot on the details and how people feel about it. So I'll give you some background on the Tesla coming to Tulsa thing. I am obviously no fan of, or no fan is not the correct word. I'm very critical of some local leadership. And I got into some hot water. So I've mentioned being a writer, a screenplay writer. And so I actually wrote basically a play regarding what if Tesla came to Tulsa, which did not portray some local leadership, probably in ways they would prefer, maybe some hot shots at some local billionaires. But the thing is, like, as critical as I was of that whole thing happening and it becoming a frenzy in Tulsa of conversation, I definitely understand why big businesses and corporations, especially in the energy and renewable energy industries, would want to come to Tulsa. I mean, one of the reasons people are so interested in coming to Tulsa is because we have amazing water. I mean, we have easily accessible water. Our filtration is better than most cities. And so people want to come here. I mean, that's kind of how it works. Yeah. And so we have that. We also are technically still a boom town because we're in the middle of, we're still booming. And as slow as it seems right now, we're growing exponentially every year, it seems like. But also, a lot of people are interested in coming here because city government has no real direction on what kind of city we're going to be. But industrial is still on their radar. It appears that we are still headed in that direction. We still would like a lot of manufacturing to be had here. And I see no issue with definitely considering bringing companies like that to Tulsa.
Yeah.
I worry a lot about the amount of gentrification that we have going on in some of our more vulnerable parts of our city. I mean, especially downtown, which we pride on being kind of our arts district. We say, look at the amount of amazing, and to be fair, we have an amazing arts district. We're one of the few cities of our sizes, or even bigger than us, that have both a ballet and an orchestra. I mean, that's unheard of for someone our size, especially in the Midwest. So we pride ourselves on this art district and saying, look at how amazing our musicians are, and our theater, and our and just our visual artists. And we pride ourselves on that. And we are making it into national magazines as being one of these hot spots for creativity. And we definitely are. But what I find disturbing is that we are putting up apartments and condos that cost a couple grand a month to live in right there in that arts district, which is making it basically impossible for our artists to live in downtown, which is what most cities do. Most cities, they have a hub of where all these artists live, but we're hiking up these rent prices and the cost of living to the point that the people we're using to bring outsiders to Tulsa in, those are the ones we're pushing out. Yeah. So I worry a lot about where and how we're developing in Tulsa.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate thing is when when certain cities do start building more and more, they do gentrify, especially people of color are usually the people that get the blunt end of that as well, unfortunately, and we got to change that. And like New York had a huge issue with that. And they still have that huge issue in a lot of other cities, Los Angeles and the bigger ones, and it's starting to seep down to smaller cities. I read that Tulsa actually has the top 50 populations in the country. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So you didn't think about that, but that's kind of, we have a lot of people live here actually, and that's kind of crazy. And we are booming, and we are like you and hopefully other people are running for office, and we're having different voices, and that's the thing. Our generation and the Zoomers are going to be the future of this city and the country, and that's the thing. We got to get people in office to change things for our generation, and if we feel like we can cause a bigger impact and make a country better for everyone, not just a few.
Yeah.
So do you want to get anything else out before we get going?
Yeah. So one thing that definitely, I got one last thing. is that with my history of voter registration problems, really not a problem until last week, but it made me realize that how important that is. You know, we have a vote coming up in, you know, June 30th. It's kind of a big vote.
Around 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. And it's so important. These votes are so important. I mean, 802 is on there. And, you know, I don't know where you stand on it, but I am definitely a proponent of it. I say vote
do you
for
want to
it.
go? Do you want to go into 802 and 805? People that don't know what to.
We can if you'd like to. I mean, those aren't really things I'm an expert on. There are much smarter people to talk about those things than I am.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah.
Honestly, I don't know enough about the 802. I need to research a little bit more to be able to comment on that. But what you do support 802?
I do, yeah. You know, and I wasn't sure where I stood on it for a while. But I have a lot of friends that work in, you know, that work with, that are social workers. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people I respect, their opinions, and basically, I reached out to them. And I think this is the most important thing, is that it's okay to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
There are so many people right now that, you know, we as humans, we're so full of pride sometimes. Mm-hmm. I know I am. There's a lot of times I don't like to admit that I don't know much about something. Mm-hmm. But when you start campaigning for something, you realize how little you truly know about everything. Yeah. You know, you can know a lot about a lot of things. But, and so I reached out to some friends and I said, you know, what are the pros? What are the cons? And overwhelmingly, I got back the response that these people who, that expanding this Medicaid is good for so many people that don't qualify to get any kind of health care for lower income, you know, especially communities of color. I mean, this is a good thing for them and a good thing for people, especially even like me and my tax bracket. Yeah. So I'm definitely voting yes on that one. And I think it's important to go out and vote. Even if you don't know exactly where you stand on the issue, I mean, do a quick Google search, verify the stuff you're looking at, obviously. Mm-hmm. But you know, it didn't take me long to realize that I was definitely voting yes on it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, we have the internet, we could look up everything, and I need to do that. I'm speaking for myself, of course. We just get so many things going around, and you know, it is hard to keep up with everything. So yeah, I'm definitely going to look into that, and I'll comment. That's why I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to comment on if I support or not. If it's Medicare expansion, I probably will, but I definitely want to know more about it before I comment on that.
No, yeah, and that's exactly, you know, the fact that you were willing to say that just now is huge. You know, I've one of the other like side things that we've been pushing for a long time before I decided that politics was the way. One of the things we really pushed was having tough conversations. Mm-hmm. And just being able to say, I don't know much about it, I'm willing to look into it, is a huge opening to being able to talk to people in your community and people around you. I mean, right now, 2020, like we said earlier, is a crucial election. It's a crucial year. And just reaching out to a friend and saying, hey, this person is running for city council, or this person's running for state house representative. This person's running, you know, in your district. This person's running for president even. Mm-hmm. Just reaching out to a friend, as scary and weird as that is, and just saying, hey, look into this person. You'd be amazed at the conversations it can open. You'd be amazed at how much of a difference it actually makes. And having hard conversations about the issues of saying, hey, you've posted some stuff online recently that make me a little concerned on your perspective regarding, say, Black Lives Matters. Mm-hmm. You know what? Can I just share my opinion with you? Can I just share this, and we'll have a healthy discussion? If we walk away from it and you haven't changed your mind and I haven't changed my mind, well, we can still be friends to that degree that we were. Maybe not as much. Who knows?
Yeah.
But these are serious conversations.
It's definitely a line.
Yeah.
It's definitely a line.
Yeah, there is definitely a line. But I think having those conversations is super important, because you'd be amazed at how many people, there's almost a gap of perspective between them and the issue. One huge thing, this is recent news, is that they've kind of expanded the discrimination law against not being able to protect LGBTQ plus employees from being fired for those reasons. And I remember a couple of years ago at Thanksgiving, so I'm in that community, and I know that a few years ago when they passed gay marriage to be legalized nationwide, it was like a couple days before Thanksgiving, and I was like, oh guys, you could have picked any other time this year to do this. And so going to Thanksgiving with my family was terrifying. And so as we all sat around, though, I knew it was coming up. I knew this conversation was going to come up, and it finally did. And it was one of those moments where you have to ask yourself, like, is this the conversation that needs to happen? And it felt like it was. And after a long, lengthy conversation full of very ignorant opinions, actually, a lot of my family members came around to it. Once they realized that they knew a person and knew people involved in that community that were affected by that every day, it opened up a line of compassion and empathy and patience. And those are three very important things for having hard conversations, is being willing to empathize, being willing to have the patience, and being willing to listen. So yeah, I went on a long tangent regarding this, but that's something I'm very passionate about, is having hard conversations, even when it seems like maybe it seems like an unnecessary beast to prod at the time.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the Supreme Court doing that. It wasn't acceptable before that people could get fired for how they are, and I'm happy. I'm really happy that they did that, and just more change. And back on the Black Lives Matter, like we were saying, like I just did, like if you don't know enough about a subject, it's better to listen before you talk. And I think a lot of people have pride and have their opinions, and all their opinions are really ignorant and lack of information, or not understanding fully, or everyone has biases as well. And with the Black Lives Matter movement, the Black community which they rightfully feel like that been treated wrongfully for so long, and they're finally doing something to change that, and that's a beautiful thing. I'm completely support that, and I'm doing my part as well, and I'm glad you're doing your part to speak up for the disenfranchised people of our community and other communities.
100%. Yeah. No, it's tough to do sometimes, but it's literally one of the most important things you can do. Is be a listening ear, and then being a voice for those people.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I have. I'm glad really glad you had a discussion with me. I really appreciate you being on the platform.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Right now I'm kind of in the middle of things with the end of the campaign, but I super appreciate you having me on. This was an amazing conversation we got to have, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Do you have some stuff that people could go to have discussions like we had?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I'm pretty active on Facebook. I have a page that's just Landry Miller. It was Landry for City Council, but we evolved. So yeah, Landry Miller. But you can find just a page there. I'll be talking a lot about the upcoming elections in Tulsa, but also about a lot of national issues and problems, and just how I feel about those things, and the general consensus, having what I like to call hard conversations regarding them, which maybe Facebook isn't the right place to do that. And if you feel that that's the case, my email is readily available there. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Landry Miller. there's not a lot of Landry Millers out there. I'm pretty easy to find. Our website is undergoing some changes. We're going to make it less of a campaign site and more of a hub to actually have conversations regarding this. We have a few events coming up online that if you want to get involved with that, we'll have a newsletter. Right now, LandryForTulsa.com. Just go there, put in your email, and you can stay in contact with all the stuff we're doing. We're still going to be very active in what's happening in Tulsa, just because we're not campaigning, just because, being an elected official is an honor, but, so is being a citizen. And we're going to take up and do as much as we can from that position, because elections it's a move for the future, and we can still make as much change in office as we can out of office. So, yeah.
All right. So, yeah. Thank you. This is Uprising.
Thank you.
It's that Uprising.